Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Proday.
NFL mock draft season has never been more in full swing than it is right now. You know that because Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net is throwing out full 7-round mocks. Our guy joins us here on AFR right now on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Ross, we appreciate the time as always. How are you?
Yeah, man, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. How's Palm Beach?
It's beautiful. Driving through it right now as we're on our way to the big reception tonight and everything like that. And I can tell you that this would be a place that I could definitely visit, but certainly would never be able to live.
Okay. There's plenty of I totally understand what you mean by that. 100%. All right, Ross, let's dive into your 7-round mock for the New Orleans Saints. Obviously starting at number 9, but there's plenty of picks that I want to kind of go through with you on and talk interest, fit, a whole bunch of different things. But it's largely assumed the Saints are either going to go best available at 9 or cornerback. Here you have them going cornerback with Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Why is he the pick?
Yeah, I mean, he's a super interesting prospect. And look, sometimes when you do these mock drafts, right, you're trying to figure out, okay, who haven't I mocked before? How do I cover them and things like that. So it's an opportunity to kind of be able to discuss them, put them on the map a little bit for Saints fans. But, you know, when it comes to Jahdae Barron, like you're drafting somebody that's incredibly high character, that's a leader in the room, and not just in his room, but has the ability to be a leader on a defense, has some connection to the New Orleans Saints as well. Terry Joseph, who the Saints signed as their defensive pass game coordinator, was the defensive pass game coordinator and secondary coach for the Texas Longhorns, working with Jahdae Barron every year of his Longhorns career. And look, he's got everything that you look for. He's kind of a twitched-up athlete. He's able to move. I think he ran like a 4.39, 4.37 during his pro day. Showed, good speed. Also shows great recovery, great discipline on the field, ball hawking ability as well. 5 interceptions, led the SEC last year. And so, when you look at the kind of changing tide at cornerback, because Michigan's Will Johnson was kind of consistently considered the number one guy, his injury concerns have kind of knocked him back a little bit. With Barron, none of those concerns exist. He's a solid prospect with 5-position versatility in the secondary, and again, a mature and very good leader, which I think is important for a team like the New Orleans Saints that's kind of going through this, what we expect to be kind of 2-3 year transition. And so just a lot of different reasons why this guy makes sense, leave alone the connection, of course, with Terry Joseph.
Do you subscribe to that theory as well, that at 9 for them it is either best available, and if it's not best available, it's cornerback?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think that there's a world in which the best available player is, a corner, in that situation because of how good Jahdae Barron is. I think he's the number 7 player on the PFF top, their big board right now and things like that. And I know he's ranked highly on some NFL boards as well. And so I do think that that's the case. And I think the thing to keep in mind, too, is that best player available is still impacted by positional value pretty often, too. And so depending upon what a team needs, that player that plays that position might end up being a little bit higher on their board than other teams' board that don't necessarily need that position.
All right, pick 40 overall, round 2, Mason Taylor from LSU. Everyone's going to get really excited about this when they see the Saints even projected to take an LSU player because, well, before Will Clapp in 2018, they just felt like they never really did it. How real is the interest between Mason Taylor and the Saints?
I think the interest is really there. I mean, if you follow you just kind of follow the visits, you follow the time, right? Senior Bowl, he was at the Senior Bowl, Saints were at the Senior Bowl, Saints had coaches at the Senior Bowl as well. You look at the Combine, of course, where every team meets with every player, so you assume that there's connection there. The LSU Pro Day, we saw guys like TJ Magnetti as well as others that were kind of, talking with Mason Taylor off to the side. Then you had the LSU Pro Day and then some reported meetings in addition to that as well. And so I just think that there's a lot that connects these two so far in terms of off-season interest. Now, it doesn't guarantee draft interest, of course, but I think that this is a situation to where we're not just looking for fire where there's no smoke. I think there's certainly smoke.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, I know media is not totally allowed there at local pro day, but Mason Taylor was present there as well, wasn't he? Was he not?
Correct, yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, so beyond the LSU Pro Day, he was at the Saints local Pro Day, which was held at their facility. And then my understanding is that there was some additional meeting time that happened between them as well, following the Pro Day workouts and things like that.
Boy, I mean, that'd be a huge get for the Saints if they could land Mason Taylor in the draft. I mean, that would just
It's something that makes sense for them, right? I mean, I get
Yeah.
it. Like, they just extended Juwan Johnson for 3 years, but you got to look beyond, right? You don't just draft for 2025; you draft for the years beyond. And so, guys like Boston Morrow as well as Taysom Hill, they go into their final year here, their final contract year, both coming off of some serious injuries. And so we don't know necessarily about their availability just yet. Hopefully we'll get some of those updates here in Palm Beach, but we don't know about their availability just yet. And then we don't really know about their future beyond 2025. And so a guy like Mason Taylor pairing up with Juwan Johnson for a few years, I think that's a pretty solid pairing to have for your future at the position.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it would just again, everyone would just love it because I mean, you know, it's the Louisiana LSU guy, so you're all in for it. Jump ahead a little bit here, and let's talk Colin McCord. So you have the Saints taking Colin McCord with the 184th pick. That's in round 6. Of course, the news of their private workout with him a week ago, that obviously suggests strong interest. What makes Colin McCord a good fit for Kellen Moore and the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's not like what we would call the modern-day quarterback or whatever people want to call the modern-day quarterback anymore in terms of being the, uber-athletic, can create with his legs type of player. But he's a really good processor, very good game manager, and knows how to operate within a system and within a scheme. And I think you saw that, his transfer from Ohio State to Syracuse had a really good impact for him. I mean, look, he went on to lead D1 FBS in completions as well as passing yards. He led the ACC in interceptions as well with 12 interceptions, but 5 of those came in one particularly challenging game up against Pitt. But, I mean, the guy is just a quick processor, gets the ball out quickly, can stand in the pocket, and has poise when under pressure. I think the big thing with him is just, massaging the decision-making a little bit. But I think he's got NFL size. He's got the ability to make all the throws, and he's somebody that is able to process the system really well. And I think that when you're a guy like Kellen Moore, a smart head coach, you want a smart quarterback, and I think you see that with Kyle McCord.
How confident are you that the New Orleans Saints do draft a quarterback at some point in the 2025 draft?
More confident now than I've been before, but I still question it. I mean, we've seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Back in the Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder draft, it was all over the place. The Saints were going for a quarterback, and they were in love with this quarterback and that quarterback, and they were in love with every quarterback in the draft. There's no way they were leaving without one. And then they left without one, and then that quarterback class ended up being awful as well. And so I wouldn't be shocked to see something similar happen here in reference to the Saints' involvement, that like they're doing all this homework on quarterbacks, they're being connected to all these quarterbacks and things like that, but then maybe leave without one. The thing that feels different this time is how loud everything has been, for it's not just speculative interest. There's, Scott Tolzing having these private workouts with Kyle McCord, and then, Kellen Moore being present in person for Jackson Dart's Pro Day, and then all the pursuit and meetings and conversations and Pro Day visits. Mickey Loomis going to the Miami Pro Day to see Cam Ward. Like, all of this stuff is visually a little bit different. So I put a little bit more weight on that, but I'm still not completely convinced, but I'm a little bit more confident than I would be in the past.
See what the Saints do there. I did want to go back to your Tate Ratledge selection, because that one's interesting to me as well. Obviously, he's coming off of an injury a little bit there, but I mean, before that, Tate Ratledge kind of just seems like the full package. I mean, he's interior offensive line, which the Saints obviously need. What is it kind of about Ratledge that plugs him with the Saints so well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the simple side of it, which is that he's really good. I mean, just to call it what it is for a second, I think he's just a really good player. But I think beyond that, he's somebody that is scheme versatile, played in a pro-style offense over in Georgia. The Saints, when they went to Georgia, they hosted a dinner with several or numerous draft prospects, according to Nick Underhill over at New Orleans Football. I can't imagine that those 3 interior offensive linemen, Ratledge, Jared Wilson, as well as Dylan Fairchild, weren't some part of that. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but I assume that there were some connections there. And I think Ratledge, just being a guy that is athletic, ran a 4.97, a sub 540 yard dash there for an offensive lineman, that always jumps off the books, moves really well, understands both zone and man blocking schemes, which I think is important because Kellen Moore is going to want to balance this run game a little bit here as he moves forward in terms of installing a system. I think Ratledge just kind of fits and checks a lot of boxes in what a Kellen Moore offense could be.
Chatting with Ross Jackson, LouisianaSports.net, and of course, the Locked On Saints podcast. Go subscribe, listen wherever you get your podcasts. Ross, a couple more. Local pro day. Anything else you've been able to kind of gather out of there? Things that we should maybe be aware of as we steamroll towards the draft less than a month now?
Yeah, I've heard that there's a little bit of interest in a local Tulane guy, or a couple of local Tulane guys. I mean, Caleb Bransaw, the Tulane safety, was a part of that group that was at that local pro day. No big shocker there. Like, that's another one of those guys that you can kind of plug and play him wherever you want after he develops and kind of makes that transition from college to the NFL. Has good speed as well, and is just a really good, just kind of like diehard football guy. Like, just absolutely loves football. John Summerall telling us a story about him, studying in his hospital bed when he was in for an illness, and he had his iPad. He was like watching PFF cut-ups of, draftable safeties and draftable corners and stuff like that. And so, like, that's just kind of the type of mold that you want from the, not necessarily on-field, but like the off-field dedication to the game, I guess I should say. And then on the other guy that is really interesting is Aiden Huntington, who is this 6'1", 280-pound defensive lineman that ran like in the 4.6s and then leapt like 30, I think it was 38, 37 something inches for his vert, had a huge broad jump. I heard that he had conversations with defensive line coach Bo Davis during a local pro day, and that it feels like there's some genuine interest there. Things that I've heard about him from some teams revolve around like really great character, as well as being a guy that has some kind of rare athleticism at his size, which is evident in his numbers. So those would be two other guys that I'd highlight. And I'll mention, too, that edge rusher Savion Jones was also at that local pro day as well.
More LSU Saints connection. We love it. Ross, what can we expect out of owners' meetings this weekend? I'll get you out of here on that one. Or this week, excuse me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the big things that we'll kind of have some conversations about are, getting to catch up with Kellen Moore about some of the recent signings, kind of the thought process behind the Brandon Cook signing, and maybe what else might happen at wide receiver, I think is going to be of intrigue. Where the Saints or what the Saints think of some of these quarterbacks they've been working with. I don't know how much detail they're going to be willing to go there, but we'll ask the question. And I think another thing that's going to be really interesting is beyond the quarterbacks in the draft, how are they really feeling about, so much of the quarterback discourse in terms of the guys that are on the roster right now has centered around Derek Carr, but what do they feel about guys like Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener? And what is that QB2 position behind Derek Carr actually looking like? Are we looking at another season-long, they're always competing again, or are they going to actually try to settle this and have kind of a more structured approach to what that looks like? So I think those are among some of the things that we'll discuss, as well as many others. Very curious about if we get an update on training camp plans. Will they have training camp in New Orleans? Will they not? This is the time to really get into some of the operational stuff in addition to what you're prepping for when it comes to the draft, as well as post-free agency.
You can read about all of it. You can at LouisianaSports.net. You can listen about all of it on Locked On Saints. And let's be honest, Ross, we'll probably bother you again later this week for an update from owners' meetings. Anyway, your time is always appreciated. Thank you, and we'll do it again soon.
No bother at all. I will be waiting and waiting and waiting until my next stop. It's always a pleasure, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.